Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the ultimate battle for the future of computing. And we're going to look at it from every single perspective: Nvidia, AMD, and Intel. You already know the semiconductor industry is going through this massive tectonic shift right now, driven by the AI boom, advanced manufacturing, and high-performance computing. But to truly figure out who's winning, we can't just look at one metric. We need a 360-degree view. So we're going to comprehensively tear down all three major players to see exactly how their unique strategies are shaping the tech that runs our world.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the Silicon Titans, the financial battleground, the technology arms race, the Wall Street scorecard, and finally, investment strategies.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Silicon Titans. The pioneer, the challenger, and the turnaround titan. This really perfectly sums up our cast of characters here. We've got Nvidia, the unrivaled AI pioneer that essentially kick-started the modern artificial intelligence revolution. Then there's AMD, the agile, high-performance challenger, fiercely fighting across both CPU and GPU spaces. And finally, Intel, the massive volume leader and foundational giant, fighting for an incredibly ambitious, high-stakes turnaround. It's so fascinating because none of these companies are playing the exact same game, which is why looking at this from every perspective is absolutely crucial.
Moving right along to Section 2, the financial battleground.
Okay, the sheer juxtaposition of these numbers is honestly wild. Look at this. Nvidia is projecting an explosive $215.9 billion in revenue, which is almost entirely fueled by their absolute dominance in the data center. But, AMD is not resting on its laurels either. They're posting record growth, $34.6 billion in revenue and $4.3 billion in net income. And then there's Intel. Now, despite bringing in a massive $52.9 billion in revenue, proving they're still moving just an incredible volume of chips, they reported a transitional net loss of $0.3 billion. It's a crystal clear snapshot of three titans in completely different phases of their life cycles.
But the real takeaway here? It's this staggering number, $120.1 billion. That is Nvidia's projected net income. I mean, let that sink in for a second. This massive profitability gives them practically unlimited freedom to innovate. And what's even crazier is they're pulling this off with only $11 billion in debt. For a company of this size, that is incredibly low leverage. Basically, this giant war chest lets them aggressively invest in future tech without breaking a single sweat.
Which brings us to Section 3, the technology arms race.
So who actually holds the crown in AI and computing tech? It's the ultimate question, right? Well, depending on whose perspective you take, whether you want a raw AI powerhouse, a highly efficient multitasker, or an integrated edge computing leader, the answer completely changes. Actually, there really is no single best chip out there. It's all about the best chip for a very specific task.
Let's look at the hardware war in the data center. Right now, Nvidia's Blackwell B200 acts as the undisputed gold standard for AI training and inference. Meanwhile, AMD's Instinct accelerators, specifically the MI300X and MI325X, they step in with this massive 192GB high-bandwidth memory alternative. That is huge for companies running massive large language models that desperately need that extra memory capacity. And then we have Intel's Gaudi 3, positioning itself as a highly cost-effective third option. They're basically proving that, hey, you don't always need the absolute most expensive premium hardware if your specific inference workloads can be optimized for value. Every single perspective here brings a vital solution to the table.
But look, hardware is basically just expensive sand without the code to run it, right? And that brings us to the software war. Nvidia's proprietary CUDA software is just dominant. It's mature, widely adopted, and it essentially locks in developers because, frankly, everyone already knows how to use it. But AMD and Intel are fighting back. AMD's ROCm is this open-source framework that's maturing really rapidly, and it's gaining major ground with massive AI libraries like PyTorch. At the same time, Intel is leaning on OneAPI and Synapse AI to offer accessible, cross-architecture, standards-based alternatives. So it really boils down to a classic battle, a proprietary walled garden on one side and open-source accessibility on the other.
Now, when we pivot to traditional computing, we absolutely cannot ignore Intel's perspective. It is super easy to get distracted by all this shiny AI hype. But despite their financial transition and the recent headlines about their foundry struggles, Intel is still the absolute volume titan. They command nearly 73% of the entire x86 CPU market. That means they are fundamentally entrenched in millions of servers, laptops, and enterprise desktops all over the globe. They really are the bedrock of traditional computing.
But if we flip over to the discrete GPU market, totally different story. Here, Nvidia is the undeniable king. They have a staggering 94% stranglehold on this market. And that dominance is really being driven by their premium GeForce RTX 50 series and some incredible advanced neural rendering features like DLSS4. Basically, if you're building a high-end gaming PC or a heavy-duty local rendering workstation today, Nvidia has made itself the default choice for the vast majority of people.
Of course, performance requires power, and comparing their thermal design power, or TDP, shows us some very distinct engineering philosophies. Nvidia is just pushing the absolute limits of raw performance here, with the RTX 5090 drawing a massive 575 watts. Meanwhile, AMD's RX 9070 XT is focusing heavily on high-performance efficiency at a much lower 304 watts, which offers fantastic mid-range value. And Intel, with their Arrow Lake processors, they're leaning into power efficiency and integrating NPUs, neural processing units, directly onto the chip to run AI tasks quietly at the edge, drawing only about 125 to 150 watts. So it's a real showdown of raw power versus smart efficiency.
All right, let's jump into Section 4, the Wall Street scorecard.
Nvidia's 5-year total return is nothing short of legendary, up over 1,175%. They have wildly rewarded their early believers, surging to a market cap of roughly $5 trillion and totally cementing their status as one of the most valuable companies on the planet. For investors who actually saw the AI wave coming, this was literally the ultimate play.
Yet, in a really incredible twist over the last year, Intel has actually been the strongest recent performer, with a 335% stock surge. Wait, why? Well, because investors are placing heavy bets on its IDM 2.0 manufacturing comeback. The market clearly sees that if Intel can pull this off, revitalizing its foundry services to build chips not just for themselves but for other companies too, the upside is absolutely massive. It is the very definition of a high-risk, high-reward rally.
So this scorecard really perfectly maps out market sentiment today. We're seeing nearly unanimous confidence in Nvidia, with a strong buy consensus sitting up at that $5 trillion valuation. AMD, on the other hand, shows a slightly more volatile but still really strong moderate buy at around a $520 to $740 billion market cap, which reflects solid confidence in their agile execution. Meanwhile, Intel is holding steady around $500 billion with a much more cautious hold rating. Analysts are essentially taking a wait-and-see approach here to ensure Intel can actually execute this massive manufacturing turnaround.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Investment Strategies. The unrivaled AI and GPU pioneer. Look, if you're looking for focused, explosive exposure to the AI megatrend, backed by staggering profitability, Nvidia's ecosystem dominance makes it the ultimate play. Their combination of that Blackwell architecture, the massive lock-in from their CUDA software, and practically non-existent debt means they are incredibly well-positioned to aggressively defend their crown.
On the flip side, the agile and high-performance challenger. For a diversified high-performance computing play, AMD is the agile competitor. They are out there successfully capturing vital CPU market share from Intel, while at the exact same time building a highly credible, open-source AI alternative to Nvidia. They are basically fighting a two-front war, and those record revenues prove they are executing it brilliantly. And then from a deep value perspective, we have the turnaround titan in the making. Intel represents a high-risk, high-reward play. Their IDM 2.0 strategy, where they're building out massive domestic foundries and offering integrated manufacturing services, is central to this monumental, high-stakes comeback. If they actually pull it off, they won't just be designing chips anymore, they'll literally be the foundation manufacturing the next generation of global technology. To sum this all up, these are your 3 distinct paths forward, and they perfectly mirror the unique perspectives we've explored throughout this explainer. You've got the pure AI megatrend through Nvidia, the diversified high-performance computing angle through AMD, and the deep value manufacturing turnaround through Intel. So which Titan strategy are you betting on for the future of the AI megatrend? The Silicon War is only accelerating from here. Software ecosystems are going to clash, power efficiencies will be pushed to the absolute brink, and hundreds of billions of dollars are on the line. After objectively looking at their balance sheets, tearing down their tech, and tracking their massive market momentum, whose corner are you standing in for the future of computing? Keep these insights in mind as the industry evolves. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.